بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وآله وصحبه ومن والاه. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. You may be hearing in the recent days and throughout the month of Ramadan, in the witr as well today, some differences in the method of recital. So we specifically use that word. Some differences in the method of recital or the mode of recital.
الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم ملك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. والعاديات ضبحا فالموريات قدحا فالمغيرات صبحا فأثرن به نقعا فوسطن به جمعا إن الإنسان لربه لكنود وإنه على ذلك لشهيد وإنه لحب الخير لشديد أفلا يعلم إذا بعثر ما في القبور وحصل ما في الصدور إن ربهم بهم يومئذ لخبير. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول. الله أكبر.
And you may be asking a question that what is this? Where does it come from? Because we have grown up on a specific type or a specific way and methodology or mode. And it's important that we mention method or mode as the word so that we don't confuse. So this is known as the concept of sab'atu ahruf, the 7 letters or sab'a ahruf. Keep it as that. A harf means letter, ahruf means letters, 7 means, sab'a means 7. So before that, in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Quran would be revealed, and he would have at any one given time 40 scribes. 40 scribes. So whenever Quran would be revealed, he would call his scribes and then he would dictate the Quran that was revealed to them and they would write it down. To the point that in the early days, there was no permission to even document hadith. His spoken words, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was not allowed to be written down. So as not to create confusion between what is Quran that has been documented and written down and recorded in writing and the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. he gave specific permission to a select few, very, very few, that, on a handful few, that were either from outlying areas or who had a certain knowledge base. They were allowed to write down hadith. Later on, much later, permission was then given for the documentation of hadith or the recording of hadith in written format. They would write the Quranic ayat, and then Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would tell them, okay, insert this ayat there, insert this ayat there, this one goes there, and then he would mention to them the tartib or the sequence of the verses. So that is tawqifi, that is not from invented by Rasulullah or Sahaba, that is tawqifi from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Jibreel accordingly would then inform Rasulullah where these verses should go. The recordings on the writings of the Quran varied on bones, barks of the trees, skins, whatever writing material they had and aids they had at their disposal, they would write it down. And Sahaba primarily would rely on their memory. They were par excellent in their memory. And that's why he said, نحن قوم أميون. We are an ummi, an unlettered nation, or an illiterate nation. But their strength was in their memory. Strength was in their memory. Nevertheless, Rasulullah ﷺ passed on, and slowly Islam started to expand. Sahaba radiallahu anhum continued in this fashion. Then the battles ensued. Many of the Hufads lost their lives, especially in the battle of Yamamah. Just immediately after Rasulullah ﷺ's demise, against Musaylama Kadhab, many Hufad of Quran lost their lives, became shaheed. Umar radiallahu anhu, Rasulullah ﷺ, that's why Nabi ﷺ said, if there was a Nabi after me, it would have been Umar. And he said that there was a number of areas in which he suggested a ruling and Quran was revealed according to that suggestion of Sayyidina Umar. Obviously it was a previous decree of Allah Ta'ala, but the wisdom and the foresight, the in-depth knowledge that Umar radiallahu anhu had, that he already understood that at this time this is what is required. So he made that suggestion, and very immediately after that Quran is revealed according to that. In somewhat 21 areas of the Quran, places of the Quran, he made a suggestion to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then Quranic verse was revealed. This was Umar radiallahu anhu. So he was a visionary person, very far-sighted individual. And great, he understood the mizaj and the temperament of deen. He understood the temperament of the Sharia. He understood the mechanics, the inner mechanics of the Sharia, the legislations, what the Quran wants, what the Hadith wants, what's the mizaj and the temperament of the rulings and the Sharia of Allah Ta'ala, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So he came to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said to him that I suggest that we need to collate the writings of the Quran and bring it into one book, one compilation. Because the Huffaz are losing their lives, and in this fashion, the Quran slowly will also be gone with it. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, immediately he declined. His immediate response was decline. How can I do that which the Prophet ﷺ didn't do? I can't do that. So he kept on declining, and Umar radiallahu anhu kept on going to him with this proposal and this request and this urge or this need. Abu Bakr was not the Nabi. Wahi, the doors of Wahi are closed. And had it been Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a verse of Quran would have been revealed quickly. But he kept on making dua, and he kept on talking to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. And in the process, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is also consulting. He's also doing istikhara and making dua as well. And Allah granted him sharh al-sadr, expand him and granted him that epiphany and that foresight as well. And he understood the need for what is known in the terminology as Jam'ul Quran. Not Tasniful Quran, Jam'ul Quran. To compile the Quranic writings in one book form. Okay, like what we see here. So then he set up a lajna and a council of the senior topmost Sahaba, and he placed upon them Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu was the Qurra of the Sahaba. Also, he was the Tarjuman of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the interpreter of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was the chief scholar in Quranic sciences. So Abbas radiallahu anhu knew the tafsir of the Quran, and Quranic sciences and Quranic recitals in Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu. He learned the Jewish or the Hebrew language in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 1 fortnight. And he mastered it. He then came Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he was young. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam declined him for jihad. He said, you're still young. The uncles kept on saying, he said, I can't take him, he's too small. He said, okay, Rasulullah, why don't you test him? See his skills. So he recited the Quran. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I got something better for you. Go and learn the Hebrew language, because I don't trust these fellows. These Zionist guys. I don't trust them. Learn the Hebrew language and you be my translator. So he learned it. 2 weeks later he came, he mastered it. 2 weeks. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, go and learn the Syriac language. He went again 2 weeks, mastered it and came back. So he was the official translator of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he would then write the letters and translate the letters used to come. So he was placed as the Amir of the Shura, the council that was set up. And there were very, very stringent rules that were put into place. So everybody was required to bring whatever sources of evidence they had in terms of Quranic writing. Any Sahabi had to bring that. They had to bring with them 2 witnesses that witnessed its revelation or witnessed its scribing by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Obviously they knew it already. It was in memory already. They 100% they knew it. But in terms of its authentication, they made it watertight. Yani there wasn't an iota loophole, nothing. And then they brought all the sources of Quranic writing, and then they compiled it into one compilation. But it was like one surah, and it was bound together. Okay? And one copy was made. The riwayat spoke of one verse that they were looking for, and they couldn't find this one verse. Obviously they knew the verse, but they couldn't find it in writing until they found it by one Sahabi, and it came forward. So this took place in Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Was a very significant event or milestone in the journey of the development of the deen. Known as Jam'ul Quran al-Awwal, the first. So then continued the deen. The time of Umar radiallahu anhu came, 10 years of Khilafah passed by, and Islam is expanding now. Now it's going into foreign lands, not only Arabs. It's going into foreign land, the Persians, the Romans, and all non-Arab speaking people. So in the time of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu, so people, okay, we just put a pause to that. So in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just like you would have heard the different recital, some senior Sahaba, one Umar radiallahu anhu on the one side, another Sahabi on the other side, and he's reading different. He's like, what are you reading, brother? This is not Quran. He said, no, I learned this from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says, no, I didn't. I learned it different. Umar radiallahu anhu said. They had a small argument. He said, right, let's go to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he said, Rasulullah, this guy is reading Quran like this. He said, yes, it was revealed like that. He said, you read? Okay, he read the way he was learnt it. He said, it was revealed like this. The other Sahabi read it the way he learnt it. He said, yes, it was revealed like that. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the Quran was revealed on 7 ahruf, sabat ahruf. 7 modes of recital. Now this is it's an entire in-depth discussion of what is meant by sabat ahruf and 7 modes of recital. So the Arabs had different tribes and different dialects. Quranic tajweed is the science of recital of Quran. How do you read the Quran? Quran is not just plain and straightforward Arabic. If you pick up any other form of Arabic literature and you read it, there's no tajweed in there. When we do the khutbah, we're not making ghunna, and we're not making mad, and we're not stretching, Obviously we're reading the letters as they should be read with the correct makharij, so that we know what is sad and what is seen. But we're not applying the rules of tajweed there. So tajweed is the science of how to recite the Quran. Then comes qira'ah. Qira'ah is how to recite the Quran in its different notes, in its different modes. So, for example, now you must understand that some places the Quran would be يَعْلَمُونَ, other places would be تَعْلَمُونَ. In the same place, according to a different riwayah, it would be تَعْلَمُونَ. يَعْلَمُونَ means they know, تَعْلَمُونَ means you know. So it's a completely different verb format. The format of the verb is different, or the verb form is different, and the meaning also changes accordingly. The meaning also changes accordingly, and that's how it was revealed. So understand that our sources of deen came to us through chains. Came to us how? Through chains. An unbreakable link between you and the Prophet ﷺ, between the scholar and the Prophet ﷺ, and every scholar in the process was given specific ijazah. This is known as sanad. Was given ijazah by his preceding teacher, that he is licensed to now, that he has acquired the science, and he can then pass it on. So it came from Jibreel, Allah to Jibreel, Jibreel to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah to Sahaba, and then Sahaba passed it down. The same chain we get hadith, the same chain we get Quran. It's the same chain. How else did Quran come to us? By the same chains. The difference is, in every era, Quran was revealed by, or was transmitted by everybody. That's why we don't talk about the chains of Quran. When it comes to hadith, there may be one brother who took this hadith, he taught it to one student, he taught it to one student, he taught it to one student. In every successive era, until it was documented in the kitab by Imam al-Bukhari or whoever else. So that's why when it comes to the hadith, it's a little bit stringent in terms of who you took it, who this scholar took it from, who he took it and who he took it, how did it come to him, and the chain to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then they look at the character references of each and every scholar in the chain. So the hadith may have been carried by one person to one until it was documented, or it could have been carried by two and then two until it was documented, or it would have been carried by three, or it would have been carried by 10. So if it reaches up to 8 or 10, now it's known as hadith mutawatir. Mutawatir means so many people narrated it at one era that now if they have to make a pact or try to fabricate a lie, it's not possible. One will definitely be like the other one or reject the version. That's known as mutawatir. So it's an interesting science for us to study, but I'm just sharing it to you with great brevity so that you can understand. Obviously the Quran is different. Quran also came to us with the same chains. However, every Sahabi gave it to every Tabi'i, gave it to every Tabi'u Tabi'i, and gave it almost like that. But it's also a chain of narrators. So then we come to the era of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu. So some would read Ya'lamun, others another riwayah, another chain would read Ta'lamun. Others would read Taqulun, would read Yaqulun. Like this. Today we recited فانظر إلى, in Hafs reads Athar, look at the signs of Allah, and Shu'ba reads it as فانظر إلى أثر, one singular format. So the plural versus the singular, masculine versus feminine, a third person versus second person, a speaker, etc. The change is like that. So that's one type of change. Another type of change is the letter Ra. We read Alif Lam Re or Tasim, like that. How do we change the Hamza? Do we recite Hamza with Tahqiq A, or we recite it with Tasheel A, etc., etc. Now comes the time of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu, and Islam is now expanding, and the Ajam also are receiving the Quran. Now there is confusion taking place amongst the masses. Sahaba come together again, the senior Sahaba, and they said, now we need to codify the writing of the Quran. The Quran has already been compiled in a book format. Now we need to codify it. We need to codify these different modes of recital. We need to codify the different modes of recital into one code. And I use the word code, in Arabic it's known as Rasm. Rasm Uthmani. The Rasm of Uthman, the codification of Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So again they set up this a new lajna, I set up this lajna with the same members and more. And again, the same stringent rules. Sayyidina Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu is in charge of that. And they begin codifying the Quran. Now they begin writing the Quran in a very specific format, not font, format and code. You heard in this afternoon, a Sheikh was saying, in the time of Mahmud Rashid, there was a Jewish man. He gave a speech, and Mahmud shared Islam with him. He said, "Why don't you become a Muslim?" He said, "No, he's very comfortable where he is." And next year later, he came and he gave a speech, but now he's a Muslim. So he asked him, "What happened last year? Weren't you the same person?" He said, "Yeah, he became Muslim." So he said, I was a scribe. I was a scribe, or a calligrapher, sorry. And I wrote 3 versions of the Torah, 3 versions of the Injil, and 3 versions of the Quran. And I made omissions and additions in all of them. I presented the 3 different versions of the Torah to the rabbis. They bought it and they took it on. I sold the 3 versions of the Injil to the priest. They bought it and they were impressed with it and they took it. And I took the 3 versions of the Quran, writings of the Quran, and I gave it to the warraq. Warraq means a printer, somebody who's going to now print it for you. So they paged through it and they said, "No, then take this back. This is not Quran. We're sorry." That is now what is known as Rasm al-Quran, Rasm Uthmani. So if any one of us now decides today and has a passion, when I was studying in my first year, there was a brother from Albania. He was memorizing Bukhari. And he knew it he knew them with each and every narrator and every number of hadith. So in his free time, he used to come to me. He says, "Please test me. Listen to me." So I used to test him sometimes. And he was busy writing the Quran. But he had a very nice way of doing it. You know, the children have that art sheet. It's blacked out, and underneath it's got colors. And then when you write on it, and it comes like a color. He was writing the Quran in calligraphy format on that. So if any one of us decides to write the Quran or decides to type it out as well, it has to follow the codification of Uthman radiallahu anh. So in this code of Uthman radiallahu anh, in that was done in the time of Sayyidina Uthman, which is also known as Jam'ul al-Quran al-Thani, then they came upon a specific code of writing the Quran that incorporates every different mode of recital. This code of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anh incorporates every mode of recital. So for example, Qari Sahib recited tonight, Maliki Yawmiddin. He also recited Maliki Yawmiddin. And when you open up the Quran, you learned when you were in Nurani Qaida, or in Qaida, you learned that you have the Fatha, and with or next to the letter you have the Alif. And sometimes if the Alif is not there, then there is the standing Alif, or Alif Maqsura, which denotes the Alif. If the Alif is missing, then you have the standing Fatha, no? Kara Zabar, what they call. So that denotes the standing Alif. Now if you open up the Quran, go later on and look at it. Look at the first Maliki Yawmiddin. You'll find that it's written with Mim, Lam and Kaf. There's no Alif after the Mim. There's no Alif after the Mim. So this code of writing incorporates both recitals. Maliki, if you put a standing Alif, standing Fatha, and if you put a normal Fatha, it's Maliki. That is the code of Sayyidina Uthman, the rasam of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu. So you will ask yourself that, "Shaykh, how do we do it today?" Because like we see there's dots here and there's a harakat and i'rab. So when the Quran was written in the early days, it was only much later on that there was no dots and there was no harakat. There's no dots and no harakat. So it was then much easier then to recite the Quran in the different modes, because now you're not like stuck to the dots that are there and the harakat that are there. But slowly as the ummah started to become weaker and increase in number and area, so then they added the dots, and then they added the harakat. And because of the weakness of the ummah, so then it went on to one riwayah. So that's why the whole ummah just recites the riwayah of Hafs and Asim. In some areas like maybe Mauritania or in Algeria and these places, they may recite in Warsh. I don't know, very seldom. Possibly maybe they may some other places they may be reciting in another riwayah, which I doubt very much. The only other one that is recited ever is Warsh, and that is recited in Algeria and maybe one or two of the other North African countries. Besides that, nobody else recites any other mode of recital of Quran. So this is a very interesting and very important one as well for us to know and for our knowledge base. This is known as Jam'ul Quran in terms of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and Jam'ul Quran in terms of Uthman radiallahu anhu. So when you recite Quran also, you can't just write it like Arabic. You have to make sure that it fits. It fits the code of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, the rasm of Uthman. What they did was then they made 7 copies or 8 copies, and then they sent it to the different muhafadat. They sent it to the different Islamic capitals. So Mecca, Medina, Kufa, Basra, Yemen, Bahrain, Mushaf al-Imam. So there are these 7 or 8 different copies that they made. So then it would remain there, and then the people would then learn of that Mus'haf, and then now the Ummah was brought and collected onto one rasam, and one code, or one codified version of the writing of the Noble Quran. Then later on came the dots, and then later on came the harakat, and then later on came the different wuqufs, the different areas to stop. So this has just been creating ease for our weaknesses, because we don't know Arabic, we don't know the correct stopping, the correct startings. So that's why now we have all the different stops, where to stop, and what's a permissible stop, what's an impermissible stop, what's a necessary stop, or what's an important stop, like that. So if we follow the Mus'haf, we will be safe. We must just follow the Mus'haf, inshallah, we'll be safe, inshallah. And then after that came the addition of what we know here. The Mus'haf of Mus'haf Madani doesn't have the rukus, but the Ta'liq script has the rukus. So then each surah is broken up into then different rukus and parts, to make it facilitate ease of reading in Salah. If you pick one ruku and you read it in Salah, and then you'll follow the mana also, because the ruku ends off the meaning of a certain discussion in a certain topic. Subhanallah. That's the beauty of the Quran. We have to build this ta'alluq with Quran. We have to build even the riwayah which the normal people read, and that is Hafs, which everybody else reads. There are certain nuances and intonations in the recital which 99% of the ummah doesn't know. For example, in the 12th juz of Quran, Bismillahi majriha wa mursaha, that is imala, the only imala in the Quran. So if you don't study it, this is what I said, tajweed is the science of how to recite the Quran. You'll learn how to recite the Quran. Then comes upon that the riwayah after that, or the chain. So if you don't learn the tajweed, you won't know that you have to do this here over here. In Surah Yusuf, قالوا يا أبانا ما لك لا تأمنا. You have to make ishmam, indication of the dhamma which was there by way of your lips, but it's not written in the Quran, and you have to do that. It's necessary. قالوا يا أبانا ما لك لا تأمنا. Nobody does that. 99% of the ummah doesn't do that. 24th juz of the Quran, أعجمي, there's 2 hamzas that come together. أعجمي وعربي. This is known as tasheel of the hamza. One is tahqiq, أعجمي. You hear the clear difference in the hamza. And tasheel, أعجمي. You have to read it. No other way of reciting it. Again, 99% of the ummah doesn't know that. So we have to learn then. We have to learn the tajweed of the Quran. And we have to make an effort to go and take the Quran from the scholars. Quran it doesn't work through the internet. It doesn't work through an application. You will be able to learn something, but in order for you to get the ijazah, you must go and sit with the scholars and go and learn from them. Ask them to teach you. Do one recital with them. Correct your reading of the Quran. We have to show the interest in the Quran, and Allah Ta'ala make it easy for us. May Allah bless us all, inshallah. Subhanallah, bihamdih, subhanallah.